Ahí se ve like.
Good evening and welcome. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education for April 2nd, 2018. Our first order of business, our first order of business will be to stand, address the flag behind me, and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next order of business, I would ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Here.
Dr. Awadi?
Here.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mrs. Librera?
Here.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Mr. McLean?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Some standard information. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted in the bulletin board outside of the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available here in the meeting room, and the agenda has been posted electronically on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Regular meetings of the Rutherford Board of Education will be broadcast without editing during a 2-hour segment as limited by Comcast time constraints on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. on Comcast Public Access Channel and on FiOS Channel 38. A video of the meeting may be viewed at our website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link may be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. Any member of the public who wishes to view a DVD of the meeting may make that request in writing to the board secretary. Board members, in your packets were the minutes from our regular meeting of March 12th, 2018, our executive session of that same evening, and our special meeting of March 26, 2018. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Are there any comments or changes to be made to those minutes? Seeing none, I would ask the secretary to please enter them into the record. And our first presentation would be the report of our student representative, Mr. Sullivan.
So, two RHS computer design artists placed third in top 3 in a county-wide art contest. This art contest was for creating a new image for eating disorders, and it was an awareness campaign, basically. So, like I said, 2 of Rutherford High School students placed in the top 3, and each of these students is receiving a scholarship from that, so that was great. Looking further into the month, we have our junior formal dinner dance, which is April 6th, this Friday. Popcert is coming up the 12th, from 7:30 to 9:30, and the spring band concert will be May 2nd, also 7:30 to 9:30. Looking forward for our sport teams here. We haven't gone to full swing really, but however, we did have our season opener matches, games, meets, whatever it may be, starting our seasons now. So best of luck to our teams here, and that's it.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions for our student representative from members of the board? No? Thank you for that report, and we'll move on to our a special presentation this evening from Dealing with Washington School. I would ask Mr. Hurley to introduce it.
As the board and the public's aware, this year we instituted full-fledged. Last year we piloted a bit the Writers Workshop program, and it's been a success across the district in all of our elementary schools. And Mr. Mulcahy is here tonight with members of faculty and some of the students to talk a little bit to the board about the Writers Workshop and how it functions, and the great success has really been in our schools. So, Mr. Mulcahy?
Yeah, I guess I'm probably
We need to move,
a
right?
better-
Please, thank you.
yeah, probably
Thank you,
better
Mr. Hurley,
forward
Board.
window.
It's great to be here this evening. Give us an opportunity to present our Writers Workshop Units of Study program at Washington School. Our presenters this evening, along with me, we have Ms. Shelley Chang, Ms. Denise Guardia-Zabal. They are third grade teachers and they co-teach together. So this will give you a little glimpse into a co-teaching classroom and how they work together as well. And then we have four of our finest here. If you can turn around so everyone can see you for a moment. We have, on my left, we have Naharika Kamkalia. We have Marley Cherbajian, we have Kellen Coy, and we have Miles Balchin. So why are we here this evening? Mr. Hurley just introduced it already. The Writers Workshop has really taken off in the district. But we're here because we're excited. We're energized. Why? Because our students are writing with more energy, more stamina, more enthusiasm, more creativity, more direction, and more productivity than we have ever experienced. 1 month into the program, we knew that we had embarked on a special journey, and we wanted to share that with you. When Mr. Hurley asked in October what our topic would be, immediately I thought Writers Workshop because it had taken off so quickly. We're going to share with you this evening a little bit of an overview of our program. It's a lot, so we're trying to condense it a little bit, but a little overview of our program. We're going to present a short mini lesson that's part of the everyday instruction within Writers Workshop. We're going to hear from the students. But I also wanted to give you at least one testimonial from one of our teachers. So if I may just read for you, implementation of the Writers Workshop program has increased students' motivation and interest in writing. When I read that sentence right away, I think we won. We already did, and we see that in all of the classrooms. Unlike other writing programs, it encourages choice within the genre, giving students ownership of their writing topics. I personally like that the program references and builds upon skills learned in the previous school year, holding students accountable for their learning and constantly reviewing previously learned skills. The structure of each unit encourages students to work together in writing partnerships, as you will see later with our students, to better their writing and engage in peer editing and revision. The use of mentor texts referred to throughout an entire unit has even first graders including authors' crafts in their writing. So right down to our first graders are looking at books written by well-established authors and being able to use those crafts in their writing already. So the growth we're seeing just from first grade right up through is phenomenal. So Writers Workshop, officially the program is the Writers Workshop Units of Study in Opinion, Information, and Narrative Writing. It's authored by Lucy Calkins, who is an internationally renowned literacy specialist, the founding director of the Reading and Writing Project at Teachers College, Columbia University, and she wrote this program with colleagues from the Reading and Writing Project from all over the world. The structure of the Writers Workshop program, really basically, emphasis is placed on 3 core areas of instruction. First is narrative writing or personal narratives. The next is informational or explanatory writing, where each of our students writes about something that they're an expert in, or they feel that they're an expert in, or they want to learn more about and be an expert in. And the third is opinion or persuasive writing. Each of those genres is organized into a unit of study. So, for instance, this is a unit of study book. So, each genre has its own units of study, hence the name of the program. This teaching booklet that our teachers use gives them all of the lessons that they need, literally word for word. And it's something that we thought was very important when we embarked on the program this year. We spent considerable time talking about how we needed to really dive in and embrace the program as it's written, with the language that's written by Lucy Calkins, so that we could really give it our best shot overall. You know, and I remember someone saying to me, well, you know, it's not really the way I teach, because the language was different. I said, well, this way we need to do it because that's the way it's going to work, and we need to give it our best shot, and we did, and immediately we saw the results in the classrooms. So they have one of these booklets for each of those genres, and then there's a 4th genre. For 3rd grade, for instance, they have a fairy tales unit that's narrative. What we've decided to do this year
is concentrate deeply on these 3 areas, the first 3 units, so we can do the best job with them. There are a lot of other materials within the program, so for us this will probably be a 2 or 3 year school goal to really do this justice. While these same genres and areas of writing may be a focus in other writing programs, it's the way in which the units of study approaches, teaches, and guides the writing process that makes all the difference. So, boys and girls, I thought it would be best if you come on, turn around and face me. I thought it would be best if we could talk a little bit about Writer's Workshop to give you insight from their perspective. So one of the questions that we've discussed a little bit is, what's your favorite part? What are your favorite parts of the writing workshop? So who would like to begin? Kellen, go ahead. Awesome. So you have the choice to pick your topics. And why is that important to you, Kellen? You know what? I'm going to give you a mic.
Give me a
Let's do that again.
Something we think that is interesting.
Something that you think is interesting. You can hold on to that. Miles, you want to pick up on that? Go ahead, take the mic.
I like how we have writing partners and we can get pointers off them.
Okay, so what does that do for you as a writer to have a writing partner?
It helps me, you can get pointers off them, and they can help you with their point of writing.
And you help each other?
Yeah.
So now, do you have a different writing partner every day?
No, we have it at the end of every unit.
So you stay with the same writing partner for the whole unit?
Yes.
So does that allow you to develop a real comfort level with your partner?
Yes, definitely.
And a lot of trust? Great. Who else? Marley? Could you pass the microphone to Marley? Marley, what's your favorite part of Writer's Workshop?
I like that we can do research on our information writing.
Okay, so you've been working, now we finished our narrative unit in the fall, and you've been working on information writing. What are you the expert in now that you wrote about?
I really like gymnastics, so I wrote about that.
So having choice of your topic, how does that motivate you? You said you like to do research. How does that motivate you to want to do research?
So if I don't really know everything about it, I can search up how to do that certain move. And I would like to encourage people to be more interested in gymnastics and to get me even more interested in it.
Good. And so that your writing can be better, so they can learn from you as the expert. Great job. Naharika, what's your favorite part of Writer's Workshop?
I really like that we can write a small moment story. So, we used to write really broad topics like what did we do on our weekend, and some people just sat around and really didn't do anything on their weekend, so they didn't have anything to write about. But now we have small moment stories, so we can really write about anything and just a small moment. So maybe just going on a roller coaster ride and not writing about the whole day.
Okay. So one of the main areas of focus right from first grade, in fact, the first grade narrative book is called Small Moments. And so the Writer's Workshop program asks students to focus very much their attention on some small moments so that they can be more invested in it emotionally, etc. I remember when we were going through training with the trainers from Teachers College, one of the things they said, you ask students to write about your summer, and they might list, then we went to, then we did this. They said, how about getting that child to capture what it was like to maybe, and Hark used the roller coaster, or they said just standing on top of a scary slide, and you encourage the children, what are the emotions you're feeling, what's happening? So we talked the other day about the roller coaster, right? And we said, when you're creeping up the roller coaster, you can describe those feelings. What happens, Naharka, give us an example. What might you write? What kind of dialogue might you write if the moment you're writing about is when that roller coaster car is tinkering right at the top?
So you could put some dialogue on what you thought, like, why did I do this?
Why did I do this? You could even start your writing with that, right? Like, why did I do this? In quotes or an exclamation point. What's something else that you might share? Marley, go ahead. What other thoughts might come in that moment?
I thought I was going to be fine on this ride. I thought wrong.
That's a good beginning. And the main thing is that we're working on the students bringing their emotions into play, and so that small moment allows them to do that. How did you feel at that moment? And it really gets them to write about it's a very personalized experience. Okay, so Ms. Chang and Ms. Guardia-Zabal are going to talk a little bit about some of the key features of the program.
So just some of the key features of the Writer's Workshop is that the instruction is planned, it's scripted by Lucy, and it's sequential and it's explicit. So what we do is each day we have a mini lesson, and in that mini lesson it's about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, and we teach one skill for the day. And then the students will model the skill, and then we'll practice it with the students, and then they'll go off into the independent time and they'll write using that skill. And then they can also work on previously taught skills, because what's great about it is that it's a workshop and that they can go back to, previously taught skills, because each student goes at a different pace. So they can work on that skill for the day, or they can go back and think about the skill that was taught yesterday, the previous day. And then during the week, we usually have it 4 to 5 times per week, depending on our schedule. And their independent time is about 30 to 40 minutes. So we'll have the mini lesson, then they'll write for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll have a share portion at the end. And as the students said, they like this program because they get to write on the topics that really interest them. And so they'll bring a lot of emotions out and a lot of memories out. And then what this program does, it relies on the gradual release model. So what that means is we'll model the skill, we'll teach them explicitly, and then we'll practice it on the carpet. They have their partners, they can turn and talk to each other, and then we'll send them off to write independently.
So just going back to what we were mentioning before, the students have writing partners, which Ms. Chang and I will establish in the beginning of each unit. And that way they can form a relationship with each other. They could also get to know each other as writers. And during the guided practice portion of the lesson, they could actually offer each other tips and ideas based on their writing. So students engage in thoughtful peer conferencing and editing with their partners. They also use a writer's checklist, which if you look right behind us, we have a sample of the checklist. And something that we love about the checklist is that it doesn't just ask students to answer a yes or no question. They have the ability to say, I'm not quite there yet, or I'm starting to work on this skill, or yes, I have finally mastered this skill. And we also use it multiple times throughout a unit so that they can go back and use the checklist independently, use it with their writing partner to check each other's writing, and then at the very end, right before publishing. Students also, they are always receiving feedback, whether it's from their teacher when we are conferring with them individually or in a small group. They receive feedback from their partners. And they also take some time to reflect on their own writing during portions of the unit and look at their own writing, which is why we also use the checklist during that portion. And students are exposed to mentor texts. So here, can you hold this for me for a second? Here we have an example of the mentor text that we use for the narrative unit, and it is called Come On Rain. The purpose of a mentor text is to truly show our students how to write as storytellers. So some of the terms that we use during this unit is we want them to write as authors, and we want them to storytell. We don't just want them to be like a news reporter and report what their story was about. Like Mr. Mulcahy said before, like, first we did this, then we did that. We want them to actually sound like they're developing a story and like they're authors. So these mentor texts are visited throughout the entire unit at multiple times to teach various skills. In grades 1 and 2, can I have the booklet, please? In grades 1 and 2, students use a booklet that looks just like this, where they draw a picture, and then they write across 3 pages. And the 3 pages really motivates the students to actually want to write more. And it also makes them feel more independent in a way, and it motivates them to write across the entire booklet. Once they leave 2nd grade and when they enter 3rd grade, they actually create personalized writer's notebooks, which if we see here, we have another example. This is actually Ms. Chang's writer's notebook. And on this notebook, they provide pictures and a lot of important people or things that are special to them, which also serve as inspiration for developing their stories or perhaps their information writing. And this is something that we use in 3rd grade prior to publishing their writing.
The nice part about it also is that the teachers become models all day long for the students. So you'll see the teachers now are going to present a little mini lesson, and it's Ms. Chang and Ms. Gardiazabal in dialogue like they're writing partners. And so even down to the booklets, the students see the teachers now invested with their own personalized writer's notebook with family pictures and important things to them, so they can come up with ideas as well.
So if you actually look at the graph that's on the projector right now, this is the structure of Writer's Workshop. So if you look at the pink, we start our day off with a mini lesson, and we gather as a class on the rug. This is whole group. And this is when us teachers will explicitly teach one specific skill for the day. And you'll notice that the majority of the time is actually the students working independently. But this mini lesson, we're just going to guide you on what we do during this mini lesson, and we'll model a small portion of it so that you can have a better understanding of what actually goes on. So we'll call the students to come to the rug, and one thing that we do, especially during Writer's Workshop, is we refer to them as writers, because we want them to actually feel like they are writers. All right, so writers, you may go ahead and sit on your Writer's Workshop materials. And so what we do during this time is we will usually have some form of anchor chart to refer to for the lesson. So we'll start off with a connection, which we usually connect our lesson to something happening in the real world, just to hook them into the lesson and to engage them. And after we engage them, we provide them with the teaching point of the day. So the teaching point of today is to revise by finding the heart of your story. And we roll right into the modeling. So that is when I would refer to my anchor chart and explain what they are going to do. So I would refer to this. Then what we do is Ms. Chang and I will model what we want them to be able to do first with their writing partner. So going back to that gradual release model, we do it first, then they do it with a partner, so that then they can go ahead and apply that during independent writing time in their own writing. So Ms. Chang and I are actually going to model what we would like them to do as a group. So boys and girls, I've been working with Ms. Chang, and we've been looking at her latest writing piece, her latest story that she is writing. And we are going to work on revising today by finding the heart of your story. So what do we mean by the heart? Well, what we mean, I want you to actually take a look at this model here. And I want you to pretend like this is the heart of your story. And by heart, I mean the most important part. And we're going to revise by stretching that heart and adding in more important details to truly make the reader understand and be able to visualize what it is that is happening at that moment in the story. So here are the steps that you are going to use to be able to do that. So the first thing that you'll do is you will reread your story. After you have reread your story, we want you to determine what the heart of the story is. What is the most important part? Then we are going to use not a full, but just a half sheet of paper, because you're only revising that important part. So this is what your version will look like. We have a bigger version to show you with Ms. Chang's writing. And you are going to then create a movie in your mind. So we want you to think about that important part. And we want you to visualize and be able to think, okay, what is it that I can do to make my writing sound better? Did I add enough detail? Do I have enough dialogue? Is my reader able to visualize what is happening? After you have made that movie in your mind, you are then going to write it on your revision paper, and you will attach it to the side of your notebook so that when you fold it in, when you are done, you are able to then see how your heart started off and how the progress that you made at the end. So Ms. Chang and I are going to show you how we did that together today so that then you can do it with your partner, okay?
So here's my story. I wrote my draft, and I thought there was more that I could do to it. So that's why I went to Miss G, my writing partner, and I asked her, can you just take a look at this and let me know what it is that I can do to my story to make it even better? So my story is entitled, A Pleasantly Surprising Encounter. People are chattering and crowded together by the side street of the Madison Square Garden arena. Could it be? I was so eager to see. What was everyone waiting for? Look, my friend yells, pointing out at a black limo, its windows tinted so dark you could not see a peep through them. The door of the limo swings open, then shut so fast it was as quick as a flash of lightning. Oh, he's walking closer and closer. It was a very tall man walking fast with long strides. I thought in my head, maybe I can just say, huh. I guess not. As he turns away from the crowd and rushes toward the entrance of the arena, I could tell it was Landry Fields. So close, my friend squeals. As I looked toward the ground in disappointment, another tall man rushes past us. He passed by so quick I didn't even see where he came from. I quick grabbed my phone out of my bag and snapped a picture. And so I said to Miss J, what can I do to make this even better? And she said, okay, well, what is the most important part of your story?
So what I told Ms. Chang is, I think that we should both agree on the heart of the story. So before I told her what I thought was the heart, I had her tell me. And when she pointed it to me, I actually agreed. I believe that this was also the heart of her story. So watch what Ms. Chang is going to do, because you are going to do the same thing in your story, okay?
So I thought the whole reason why I'm writing the story, and I titled it a pleasantly surprising encounter, is this last part right here. And I'm just going to put a box around it. This whole last paragraph is when I talk about Jeremy Lin.
But then I mentioned to Ms. Chang, I mentioned, Ms. Chang, you are able to visualize what happened at that moment because you were there, but I was not there with you. So I am having trouble understanding what it is that you were feeling at that moment, what is it that you saw, and you also kind of forgot to mention Jeremy Lin, so maybe we would need to mention him in there.
Okay, so I said, Miss G, you're right. I definitely need to mention his name. I definitely need to add more details. And so I went back, I drafted, here's my revised heart.
Now let's listen to this, boys and girls.
I'm just gonna put a heart right here.
As I looked toward the ground in disappointment, another tall man rushes out of the crowd and past us towards the entrance of the arena. Jeremy! Hey, Lin! Jeremy Lin! The crowd is screaming for Jeremy as we all realize that it's him. It's actually him. Quick, I say to myself. I swing my purse around, fumbling through to find my phone and open the camera. Jeremy turned around, glancing over his right shoulder, and gave a quick wave with his left hand. That quick second passed, and I snapped a blurry picture of the side of Jeremy Lin's face, just as he turned back around to continue walking. So I said, wow, Miss Chang. Now I was truly able to picture what was happening, and I almost saw you, Miss Chang, fumbling through your purse looking for your phone to snap a quick picture of him. Mm-hmm. So that was much better.
Thank you.
So
what we'll do now is we'll go ahead, we're just going to tape it, just so that it's in there. And you can go ahead and just glue it on too, if you would.
So then what we'll do when we're done writing, we could just fold it in like this. And then when you finish off, you're able to actually see how you revise your writing, how you took it from this step and the progress that you made on this side. Okay? So that is the explicit teaching. We basically taught them what it is that we want them to be able to do independently. What we do now is we ask the students to practice this skill with their partners before we release them to do that. So at this point, we would ask the students to go ahead and take out their writing pieces. Sure. Give one to the boys, and then to the girls. Or did you want? So, at this point, the students already know that to sit next to their writing partner, and they know who to turn. They are already familiar with this part of the lesson. So we would ask. We also have partner 1 and partner 2. So they already know who partner 1 is and who partner 2 is. So we would like partner 1. We would like you to all take a minute to reread your story. And then we will have partner 1. So we'll start off with Marley. Can you just tell us really quickly what your story is about?
My story is about when my cousin and I got stuck in a maze and there was a birthday party coming in like 5 minutes, so we had to get out as soon as possible.
Okay. Can you share the heart of your story with Naharka?
We waited and waited for an immensely long time until I remembered I had my phone. Joey, I can call my mom, but my phone is on 3%. Mom, Joey and I are stuck in a maze and we are stuck. And so can you please get our help? Joey, I told her that we are stuck and that we are stuck in the maze, I said to Joey.
So I liked your story, except maybe you should add less ands and don't repeat any sentences, because the reader could get bored of what you're saying if you keep repeating anything.
I can see that in my writing. I'll definitely work on that.
One more thing, just to add suspense into it. Maybe you could stop mid-sentence, so when you're calling your mom, so just over there, and then it would leave suspense into the story.
So maybe it would go something like this. Mom, Joey and I are stuck in and then stop it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so Miles and Kellen are also writing partners. Miles, can you tell us what the topic of your story is?
My topic is when I made a half-court shot.
All right, and can you go ahead and read the heart of your story?
Okay. There were 5 seconds on the clock. I was at half court. The clock was ticking. I shot the ball. Swish. Everyone said, "Wow, what a shot." Yes, we won the game.
I liked how you wrote, we won the game in bold because it really explains to the reader that's an important part. But I do think instead of just saying there's 5 seconds on the clock, you can say 5, it's up to me. 4, I have to make a decision. 3, decision made. 2, the ball leaves my hand. 1, swish. I can't do something.
So more like this. There were 5 seconds on the clock. 5, it was up to me. 4, I have to make a decision. 3, decision made. 2, the ball leaves my hand. 1, swish.
Was there a celebration after you hit the shot?
Yes, I remember my team was going wild after I made that shot because, it was after the game and that was one of the biggest games because it was our last.
All right, great. Thank you, partners, for sharing. So after this is the all in the mini lesson time, and that's the guided practice. And after that, they'll go off and they'll do their independent writing time. So that's 30 to 40 minutes. And then after that time, we'll gather them back on the rug for their share portion. And in the share portion, sometimes we'll have them share what they wrote for the day, or we'll do more partner work and set goals. So it depends on what we're working on the next day also.
So the interesting thing I just want to add is it's remarkable how much interaction, how much dialogue happens. These are our third graders. When we walk into a second grade class or a first grade classroom, and mature dialogue for 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds and pointed dialogue. And, I think one of the things that impresses me that a parallel that I draw to the Writers Workshop program is I really think that this is the best adoption that we've made since Math in Focus. Math in Focus had one of the things about Math in Focus was the dialogue between students, and it's happening now in writing too. And it was amazing to me 5 and 6 years ago in Math in Focus how much children, 6-year-olds, would have real conversations about mathematics and numbers, and now it's happening in writing too. So the program has really it took off for us right from the beginning. So I just wanted to ask you, you have your microphones, just to close up our segment. One of the things I talked about the other day is how do you think Writers Workshop has helped you to grow as a writer? Who would like to respond first? Marley, go ahead.
It's helped me a lot because in the previous years when you would write, it would just give us like a broad topic to write about, and if we really didn't do anything, and we didn't get to choose what our topic was. And this year, we get certain skills that we haven't learned in the previous years to help us. Like we have our partners, and we get to research, and that we get to pick our topic.
Great. Naharka, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I've grown a lot. So, in the past years, I've only written maybe a paragraph or less than a page.
but now I'm writing 3 pages, and I can make a story out of it.
And one of the things, Naharka, to add to that, with Ms. G talked about the 3-page booklet. Our first graders do that, and what it's given them, one of the teachers, we had a lot more testimonials, but we decided we needed to cut some out, but one of the comments was that it's made writing so much less intimidating for children, because they have 3 pages. Our first graders literally touch the pages, then they sketch the pages, and then they write, but they could write, they don't necessarily, some students would get stuck at the beginning. They can go to the middle. They can go to the end. They can go to a different part of the story and just work on that if that's what they want to do that day, or that's what feels comfortable for them that day. And so I think I wanted to ask you that. Has it helped you guys, Miles, has it helped you to write longer pieces as well?
Yes, because the way we're getting teached in writing and what we're writing about, because last year some of the things the kids didn't know what to write about because they didn't like that topic.
Mm-hmm. Good. And then the skills that are being taught on, do you like the fact that you get one specific skill a day? How does that help you? Kellen, go ahead. How does that help you to focus?
That helps us to focus because if we had 7 different topics each day, we would just get them all mixed up and we'd get confused.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think what had happened in the past too is you might, even during our instruction, you might have, and don't forget to work on the spelling, and don't forget this. It's an explicitly taught skill, 1 a day, and that's the focus for the day. If they accomplish that, and then they have other time to work on other things that they've been taught. But they really have to focus on that one special skill and a small moment in their writing, and it's really helped us a lot. So thank you for giving us the opportunity. I hope we gave you, there's so much to the program, but I hope we gave you a little bit of an insight and just the excitement that we're feeling. I'll close with this. In every grade level, I've been in classrooms where the teacher has said at the end of a lesson, all right, boys and girls, we need to pack up. We have to get to so-and-so, whatever special. And literally students will say, oh, no, I want to keep writing. Or they'll ask, when can we write again? When can we have more writing time? And I think we were doing well with writing, but nothing compared to this year. So we're excited to see the results over the next couple of years. And thanks again for having us this evening.
Thank you. I don't know if there were any questions by members of the board. Mr. Rowland?
Yeah, I had 3 quick questions. 2 for the teachers, 1 for the kids. If there's an odd number of students because of absences or just an odd number of students, how do you handle that?
We usually have a trio get together and they get to work together as partners. Luckily for us, we have 24 in our class, so we haven't run into that problem. But if somebody is absent, then we'll have them join as a trio.
Okay, and how are partners chosen?
So Ms. Chang and I will sit and we'll think about who would connect with one another just based on the makeup of our class, and who will be able really to, I think it's basically more about the connection.
And just their connection, and also just their ability to be able to work well with each other. So we just look at their personalities and how they work. Mm-hmm.
How many partners do they work with throughout a year?
So in each unit, they have 1 partnership. So they'll stick with that 1 partnership for the whole unit. And then in a new unit, we'll set up new partnerships.
Units a couple times a year? Or?
So we have 3 units during the year. Mm-hmm.
So we will have, this year we have the 3 main units. We're probably spending a little bit more time than Lucy Calkins would ask you to for 1 unit. But we, again, as mentioned earlier, we decided we wanted to really dive in as deeply as we could with the 3 main units. And then there are a lot of other materials. We have another unit for each, like I said, fairy tales for 3rd grade. We also have, there are different resource booklets like this if-then curriculum that is provided to each teacher too. So that's just like a troubleshooting curriculum book. Like if a student is struggling with, boom, and here's a lesson for it. So we're going to, over the next couple of years, we want to really, we wanted to dive in initially and really spend a couple of years doing a really good job implementing the program exactly the way it's supposed to be. With no, we're literally telling teachers, you can bring your own personality to it, but your techniques have to be embedded in Writer's Workshop.
And last question was for the kids. How do you spell?
Miles, you want to do that one?
Like,
Is it 7 R's?
a bunch.
A bunch. That's
Got
good.
it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowland. Any other comments or questions from board members? For me, I'd like to first of all, obviously compliment you and thank you for taking time out of your busy Monday evening to come in and see us. We appreciate that. And congratulations to you on the program. It is remarkable, I think, to see second graders who are engaged in the process and starting to learn that there is a process to this sort of thing, and it'll be a skill that will help them throughout their lives. So that's great. You had mentioned that it was a pilot program last year. Now it's so from a board support standpoint, maybe what's the evolution been, and how do we go further with it? Are there next steps?
Well, it's just continued teacher professional development, continued training as new teachers come on board to train them. A lot of that can be turnkey by the staff who's already been trained. We probably invested 2 full professional development days into training last year, and we'll continue to do that as ongoing. And the evolution of it will also be as the students move up into the middle and high school. Although the program is more of an elementary program, the concepts will stay with them, and the writing process will continue as we go forward.
And if I may, Mr. Hurley, we have a professional learning community in the building. So we have PLCs, we call them, for different teachers work on different areas and kind of become the experts in that area to help the staff develop. So we have a PLC in the building. About 6 or 7 teachers are on the Writers Workshop PLC. So they'll remain on that for the next couple of years, kind of guiding our professional development in the building with it too.
Very good. Thank you. No further questions?
Just one last comment, if I can. Also, you hear about co-teachers and co-teaching, and this is an example of how co-teaching works. It's truly not the old days of in-class support where a teacher was in a room and would occasionally interact with 1 or 2 students. It's truly a co-teaching model where the teachers share the responsibilities with all the students, not just specific students they may be assigned to. So that's you saw a little bit of how that functions as well in this presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
If there's no objection from the board, we'll take a 5-minute pause and allow you to collect your things and sneak out the door, because then we have to get to our meeting. But we won't do that in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job, third graders.
That's what it's about.
Okay, if everyone's ready, we'll come back into our meeting and continue on. I had told our student representative that he could go home and study, I'm sure, with the NCAA finals on. That's what he's doing. That's what he's home doing. So
you told the superintendent that too?
Yeah, I haven't told the superintendent that yet, but could be forthcoming. So we'll move on now to the report of the superintendent, please.
Yeah, just a couple of items tonight. On the agenda, there is a note to amend the calendar because of snow days. And fortunately, although we were over by 1 day, we don't have to impact yet, because after today, I guess winter is not over. But we don't have to impact yet the spring recess or the end of the school year. So what we will do, as was always in the calendar, if we had used up all of our snow days, the Friday before Memorial Day becomes a regular day. And as we've done in the past, we made that a 1-session day. So that Friday before Memorial Day, which is May 25th, becomes a 1-session day for students and teachers. The Monday, the day is Memorial Day. The Tuesday, May 29th, was originally scheduled to be a professional development day for teachers and not a day for students. We will make that the day for students to make up the extra day. So it's less, I think, of a interference to the students. It doesn't take away April vacation or the end of the year. And it also, these teachers and staff would have been reporting for work for a full day that day anyway. So tonight, that would be on the agenda for the board to approve that calendar change. And assuming that's done, tomorrow we'll send out messages to all the families, parents, and put it on our website. And any specific details will be coming from the buildings. Okay. The Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. We've often said, what does FCCLA stand for? That's what it stands for. And they had their as high school students at what we formerly used to call home economics or family consumer science. And once again this year we have 3 students who qualified on the state level to attend the national level competition, and that will be in Atlanta at the end of June. And we also had 4, those 3 students took first place on the highest level of competition. There's 2 different levels of competition, and this is called the star level. And we also had 4 second place and 2 third place students. And then on the state level, which is the next level of competition, we had 2 gold medals and 1 bronze. So our students did very, very well, and once again qualified to move on to the nationals. And in terms of facilities, since we had pretty much a dedicated meeting last week, there's not much new to report other than April 12th, there'll be a community meeting at Union School at 7 o'clock. Our facility, we've developed, as we've been talking about, a web page, an entire web page devoted to getting a lot more information and out on the web. And that will be live tomorrow. We will put announcements out Wednesday to the school community through Connect 5 and email, and also then Thursday we'll put it on the web. Now the reason for this is tomorrow going live, we'll give it a day so we can actually look at it in real operation to make sure everything is functioning correctly. We also didn't want to send out 2 Connect 5s on the same day about the calendar and the web. So then we'll do a grand announcement on Wednesday, and then by putting it on the website a few days later, the regular Rutherford website, that triggers a social media blast. So that will be another announcement out that it's there. And on the web page, there's a facilities link right now. And what you'll do is when you click, and instructions will be given to everyone, when you click on that facilities link, it will take you right to this separate web page. So you'll access it through the Rutherford web page by clicking on facilities. And the email information for community members who have been emailing us to facilities at rutherfordschools.org, there'll be a tab, a link on the new website that will populate the email address right into your email, so that if you want to send a message out, you just click on that and you're ready to go with that. So we have pictures, we have video, we have frequently asked questions, and this will be, as I said, an organic website that will continue as the process changes and changes are made or decisions are made and more information comes forward. We'll consistently be adding and or deleting things from that email. That's it.
Thank you. Any board members have a question or comment to the superintendent regarding this report?
Just one
Mrs.
comment.
Jones?
My understanding was that Lyndhurst took today and had a half day today for their vacation. They had to actually use the first day of their vacation. They were off this week. So schools really did have to scramble for days.
I think, across the area. Yeah.
We were fortunate. Yeah.
Okay. Next item then will be report of the president. Just a couple of quick things. One is the superintendent's evaluation of the CSA review process. I've discussed this with all of you, I think, and the conclusion is that we will stay with the process that we've used the last several years. Just a reminder, the School Boards Association is introducing a new process which we had the option of using this year, or we can go to it next year. It will be mandatory, and it seemed that the preference was to stay with our current process, and for 2 reasons. One is we have a lot of things going on during the next several months with meetings, committee meetings, and discussion about potential referendums, that sort of thing, and then we'll let others work out the kinks of the new process so that when we get ready to use it next year, that will have already been done. So the process will be that our superintendent will need to upload his report as to district goals and And then we will need to each of us by May 18th go in and give feedback to the superintendent's reported information, as well as the performance evaluation, the same as we've done in the past years. And then on targeting June 4th, we'll have a board review. I'll consolidate all the information. We'll have a board review of that consolidated information, come to a consensus. I'll put together a report, and then the goal would be to be able to review that with the superintendent by June 28th, which is our statutory requirement to complete that.
And just one reminder, when I initiate it by entering the information, then an email gets sent to each board member to tell you that I've completed that, and that's your cue then to go in and do your part.
So if there are any questions on that, come back to myself or Mr. Hurley, and we'll answer that. Number 2, I would actually, so we have a committee, our Strategic Planning and Communication Committee, that's chaired by Mr. Racine. I'd like to see if the members of that are going to be available. What we'd like to do is have a meeting on April 26th. 24th, was it? I'm sorry.
Monday's the 23rd.
The Monday of, I'll have to look at the date.
I think it's 23rd.
April 26th is a Thursday. Monday is the 23rd.
Yep.
23rd, thank you. So on Monday the 23rd, which is the soonest we'd be able to meet after the April 12th roundtable, but to be able to have a committee meeting to update the activities that we're working on, communications from the board and back to the board regarding referendum projects. So, okay, does that seem available? So it's you, the 23rd. We can look and see if the 23rd is available afterwards. Okay. Yeah.
I have a conflict.
Oh, you have a conflict. Okay.
That's the 1 week I'm away on that international trip.
Oh, okay.
Well,
So,
are you away the entire week? Or?
21st to the 28th.
We'll figure something out.
okay. So if you can just kind of look at available dates after the 12th, because there's some for the superintendent that are not available, and just after the 12th to be able to have a committee meeting. No, that's fine. Okay. And then the only other thing I would report is that we've had several productive meetings with the Rutherford Supervisors Association and Administrators Association. We have a couple of more this week, and so negotiations are continuing on schedule. Any questions? No? Okay, so we will, as we've been doing for the last several meetings, we're going to open the floor to the public for any comments they wish to make. And normally at this point in the meeting, it's for agenda items, but we have a small agenda, so we'll open it up for any comments or questions that anyone in the public would like to make. It's 8:27. We'll open the floor for comments. Yeah. So yes, we actually have one that's a special situation, and Mr. Kelly will.
Thank you. The board had received a message from a parent last Thursday, I believe, with a request to read it aloud without the parent's name or address. I spoke to her today. I explained to her we can't do that. Anybody who addresses the board must give their name and address. So she asked me to read the letter into the public record, and I will report her name and address. So, without further ado, Mrs. Swenya Liguri of 33 Winger Avenue wrote the following letter to the board. My understanding is that the board is performing a final reading and contemplating approval of policy 5516.01 on April 2nd. This policy would prohibit one-way or two-way audio or video communication on GPS tracking devices. Policy 5516 explicitly permits use of cell phones and other ECRD devices in the case of an emergency. I am the mother of twin 3-year-old children with autism registered with the district. They are prone to elopement. On the written recommendation of their pediatrician, I have purchased Angel Sense GPS tracking devices for my children to prevent a dangerous and potentially life-threatening elopement. As you may be aware, a child with autism in Rochester, New York was recently found drowned in a local river after wandering off from school, and the parent had no way of determining he was lost, where he was, or to communicate with him. The Angel Sense and probably other devices have a schedule that can be synchronized with the school's calendar so that audio communication can be disabled during school days and hours. Further, the school can be notified of any changes, for example, in an emergency. Therefore, with this schedule, the device can be compliant with Policy 5516 and with a slight modification with proposed Policy 5516.01. 3-year-old children with special needs are not capable of using a cell phone as a non-disabled child would be. Approval of Policy 5516.01 would be discriminatory to children with whose disability and or age makes them incapable of using or too young to have a cell phone. Generally, GPS does not work inside a building, and Wi-Fi location may not be sufficiently accurate to locate or help a child. In the event of an emergency like a lost child, fire, or other disturbance, it is essential that the parent or guardian and potentially school staff be able to listen in and talk to the child in order to locate them and safely guide them out of harm's way. We respectfully request that the Board of Ed not approve Policy 5516.01 as is, but modify it to allow two-way communication in the case of a lost child and or emergency situation. Sincerely yours, Sueña Liguri. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe we'll have certainly important points to consider, but I think we'll have a discussion a little more general when we get to the policy segment of the...
Yes.
Yes. So for now, we'll just hold for that and discuss it at the appropriate time. Are there any other comments from the public that would like to be presented to the board? Seeing none, at 8:31, we'll close the floor to comment, and we move on to our business. And first area for action is personnel, and I would ask Mrs. Ahmed to please take the board through that.
All right, tonight, hopefully we'll be moving motions 1 through 7, because there'll be 7 motions, 7 will be tabled. First one is Teresa Farrell, retirement as a clerical assistant. Rebecca Kassenberg, number 2, resignation of a teacher. 3, Tatiana Cruzado, approval of a long-term sub. 4, Nadia Cunningham, approval of part-time assistant. 5, travel reimbursements as listed. 6, substitute teachers, Tatiana Cruzado and Heather Remmels. And 8, skipping over number 7, is high school co-curricular approve Jennifer Gagas and rescind Lauren Winslow. I just have one for curriculum instruction.
That's what I see, is curriculum instruction. So.
Is there any questions from?
No. Any questions? I mean, number 7 is a personnel matter, so I don't want to discuss, but it was late in the day. We have to get some paperwork. That's so that may be something we put in later.
That's it.
So, are you formally moving those?
Yes.
1 through 8, excluding number 7. So I guess it's 1 through 7 now. Yeah. Okay. And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Rivera. Last chance for questions or comments regarding these 7 resolutions. Hearing none, I would ask the secretary to please poll the board.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next subject is curriculum and instruction, and I'll ask Mrs. Jones to please take us through that.
Thank you. There are 11 resolutions under curriculum instruction for board consideration. Number 1, approval of the school calendar for this year. Resolutions 2 through 5 need affirmation of the superintendent's decision in 4 HID investigations. Resolution 6, approval of Diane Jones to the District Evaluation Advisory Committee. For Resolution 7, approval of field trips for the high school, for the school year, now totaling 118. 8, approval of the overnight trip for the 2018 Penn Relays for our athletic teams, and Dave Frazier would be the sponsor. 9, out-of-district placements for 2 students. 10, approval of summer athletic practice for the RHS during the NJSIAA summer recess period, June 11th through September 1st. 11, approval of the overnight trip for the Junior States of America, going to Island, April 21st to 22nd. And the sponsor there is Andrew Vanderbilt. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, there is a typo in resolution number 1. It should be for the 2017 and 18 school year, which the calendar indicates, but the resolution says 18-19.
Oh,
Please correct.
that's right.
Seems there's no discussion. Are you formally moving those?
I'm now moving resolutions 1 through 11.
Thank you. Seconded by?
Second.
Mr. Rowland. Last opportunity for questions or comments. Hearing none, ask the secretary to please poll the board.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving into finance, I would ask Mrs. Librera to please take us through that.
Sure. There are 3 finance motions tonight. Number 1 is the approval of bills totaling $8,534,085.68. Number 2 is the Secretary Treasurer's Report for February 2018. And number 3 are the budget transfers for the period of February 1st, 2018 through February 28th, 2018. I move all 3 finance motions.
Seconded? Second. Mr. Mazzone? Any questions, comments regarding these? I'll ask the secretary to please poll the board.
Mrs. Ahmed?
On number 1, no on check number 21351 through 21354, and all the rest, yes.
21351 through 21354?
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to policy. Mr. Healy, would you take us through it, please?
Yes, we have one resolution, which is the second reading for this resolution, to approve 24 resolutions or regulations. And as noted earlier, I guess we have discussion on one of them.
Well, I don't think, I don't know about discussion. I mean, some factual information. As was discussed when we presented the policy 5516.01 is written for 2,700 students to protect the FERPA, the privacy rights of 2,700 students. As was discussed at the time the policy was first presented in March maybe or February, I forget the meeting it was first presented, and the policy was developed not by the district. It was developed by Strauss Esme, who is a team of lawyers and policy advisors and former school officials, and is pretty much recommended for every school district in the state. If you remember, the question came up about what about special needs students who may need a different type of device. And I answered the question at the time, which is the same answer today, that special education students have an individual education plan, an IEP. In that IEP, many times, well, I shouldn't say many times, because generally, if a student cannot, in a comprehensive general education setting, students who cannot adhere to most of the policies, they're the students that often we look at who may have to go out of district. Now, I'm talking hypothetically here because this is the kind of conversation that usually doesn't happen in public or at a board meeting. So I'm not talking about any statement that was read tonight from any particular person. So in an IEP, we have had times when, for example, a graduation requirement, which is a policy, is changed because of the IEP, because of a student's disability. We've had the attendance policy changed in a student's IEP because of a special needs of a student. A physical education requirement, the list can go on and on. As I explained, the place where these discussions take place is not in policy, which is for 2,700 students. It's for the individual plan of a student. And during the course, and the way an IEP works is the parent, if the parent chooses to bring an advocate, they can do that. The parent chooses to bring an attorney, they can do that. Often we don't get there in these sort of meetings, but they can. It's the child study team, it's general ed teachers, it's special ed teachers. Sometimes the director, the supervisor is there, sometimes an administrator is there. And if there is any sort of a special needs, the district evaluates whether a student needs something, and if they do, they'll make a suggestion. Sometimes the parent will push back and say, well, we think we need it. And an IEP is supposed to be collaboratively resolved. And in a hypothetical situation of a device that has there are ways to make that work, and there are ways that it won't work within the scope and that kind of discussion would take place in an IEP meeting. So the policy is not really a question in this case. This should be an IEP discussion, which, to move directly to a response to what was read tonight, there have been ongoing IEP discussions, and still this afternoon there were some about this and how to resolve this matter. So I think it would be, we could be potentially violating the rights of every student to allow any student to bring in an audio recording or two-way radio. If a student needs it through an IEP and it's appropriate, then we would take the steps we would need. So I think I don't know if there's questions about that or comments about that.
No, I think the important point is that any special need that has been validated in an IEP trumps policy.
Yes.
And so there's no fear that a policy would create an undue risk or burden or harm to a student with an IEP.
Exactly. And the district has a responsibility to educate the student. If there's ever, and again, I'm not talking about any specific case, okay? If accommodations or modifications need to be made that would make it not a good fit in district, that's when you look at a district. But that's all part of the IEP process.
Thank you. So
we are moving this resolution tonight.
And is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Rowland. Any questions or comments before we go? Ask the secretary to please poll the board.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on now to buildings and grounds. Mr. Mazzone?
Yes, certainly. So I have one resolution to put forward to the board. This is the approval of the Facilities Advisory Committee for the 2017-2018 school year. Single item, so I put the item forward.
And just a reminder, whenever there is a committee of the board or a subcommittee associated with the board, if it includes persons from outside of the board or the staff, then we have to have a formal resolution to establish that committee, and that's what this is. So, you're moving that formally, and
Yes,
seconded by Mr. Racine. Oh, he's in it. Okay, that's good. That's a good point. Mr. Healy?
I'll second it.
Have to abstain?
Yeah. Okay. That's,
She abstained?
He did abstain. Yeah.
yes. Please vote.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Dr. Olati?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Librera?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
I abstained.
Well done. Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to any other old business subject that anyone would like to raise. No? We'll move then to any legislative update, Mrs. Jones?
Yes, a quick one. We attended a meeting. This is Mr. Alati and myself last Thursday, March 29th. This is the Bergen County meeting, and it happened that we had legislators there. There were 7 that were expected. They didn't all make it, but Senator Joel Cardinal from the 39th District, Senator Robert M. Gordon from 38, Assemblyman Benji E. Wimberly from 35, and Assemblywoman Holly P. Schleppy from 39. It was an interesting meeting. They talked about school funding. They stated that Senator Sweeney expects the state to shift the responsibility for special ed to the state level. That would be interesting if that could happen. Mr. Arletti, was his first county meeting. If you have any comments on the meeting itself you might want to share?
I enjoyed the company, the food. So it was actually a very informative meeting. I think it's great to be at a meeting where you can hear from legislators about what they're thinking on a larger scale, and they talked about funding. They also talked a little bit about safety and security. I think they talked about the possibility of a potential increase in security aid. So they talked about that as a. You want to talk about that?
There is one legislative one that I could share with you on that. Monday, March 26th. In response to the recent nationwide concerns over school shootings, the Senate voted to amend pending legislation Senate Bill 2293 to include $250 million to be used for school security grants. So that would be forthcoming, and if that goes through, that would be something good. Thank you.
I would just say that it was a great experience because it allowed board members not only to network with one another, but to engage with legislators. And they really spent a good amount of time having an open Q&A so that you can, really start to engage. And they encourage that, outside of that meeting as well. So it was productive.
Very good. Thank you. You had a comment? Or no? Okay, thank you. It is 8:46. We will open the floor again to the public for any comment that anyone may wish to make. Yes? If you would just state your name and address, please, and your comment. Thank you.
Hi, Kevin Duggan, 469 Stuyvesant Avenue. So,
can you tip that up? Yeah, just tip it up a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. It was interesting listening to the architect at the last meeting, and thank you for having him here and giving us the information. My question is related to the options for the pool. And initially, Mr. Hurley, when we had communicated, you had suggested that you would go back to the architect and have a more detailed discussion to see if there is the possibility of an alternate plan that could be found. I believe what he presented was the original plan. So my question is there still discussions underway to see if there is another viable plan that could be presented? Or is what we heard last week?
We can address that.
Yes and no about being the original plan. Okay, when he did the original plan, he presented the plan involving the pool with dialogue about why other options did not meet the parameters that he felt he was given through the long-term facility plan report, a long-term strategic plan report. When I went back to him, I asked him to revisit everything and to give details other than just hypothesis of that these plans would not be the best plan in his opinion. So the plan of the diagram showing the infringement on the field, the estimated cost add of $2.5 million, all of those details, some of the design of the egress, the fire sprinkling, those are all things that may have been in his head, but were never put to paper or put to a dollar amount. Okay? So in his statement last week, he alluded to the fact that you couldn't build up, you couldn't build out on the back area where that parking is, wasn't enough room. on a home, that this was the only, in his view, viable alternative. So, yes, it was what he thought of originally. No, we never saw the picture of the field. We never heard what the cost would be, nor did we really have a detailed analysis of what cost would have to go into the pool to sustain that. So you're right, but you're not right in that regard. Okay. And your second question, I think, is, we have ongoing discussions with him about this topic. So variations on themes and things like that, do any of them bring any value that we haven't seen yet?
And you will make your decision by June for what you present?
That's the board to decide. Ultimately, the final determination, regardless of what the board feels is the best thing to put forward for the students, will also be impacted by, when we get back from the state, the debt reduction figures, because then we'd see when you throw a number out, the total or the real impact on taxpayers is changed by that figure. So we won't get that back. The reason why we're saying June, we won't get that back until late May from the state.
So how realistic is it that there is still time to have an alternate plan? Because what you've already presented so far and has gone to the state is the plan that eliminates the pool.
No, because we could always change amendments to, if we were going to send an entire plan to the state for the entire project, that would slow the process down. But amending a part of it would add a little time, but not so much time that we can go forward in the fashion we want to go forward in. If I think that's what your question is.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hisham Mahmoud. I would love to speak about another topic beside the referendum and the pool, but I have to. Allow me to be frank. Mr. President, I did send an email to you and to the board expressing my disappointment about last meeting and not being allowed to ask the architect directly questions, or even ask the architect question through you. That being said, in my field of work, and please don't take that the wrong way, so often I have my subordinate coming to me and say, hey, why don't you change the code and do that? It will be better. My point here, you could be the best architect, you could be the best programmer on earth. It doesn't mean that someone who knows less than you cannot give you an idea that may prove to be better than what you're thinking. That being said, my understanding why we're here with that referendum was the result of the long-term strategic planning committee. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, could you...
The long-term strategic planning committee studied the project and recommended that's what we need. The student need cafeteria, need classes.
From the long-term strategic planning committee, there were observations made regarding areas of our district that need to be reinforced. That coupled with input from the administration on programs and what's needed to support those, and then survey,
which we have about 500 responses,
and then the architect was given this. These various, it's a constraints or wish list, whatever you want to call them, and from his deep knowledge of our district and our school buildings, we received a number of proposals. The proposals that they're suggesting to be able to accomplish all of these points that we've asked for is the one that we've been reviewing and looking at this point. But again, nothing has been decided by the board.
I understand.
As how we're going forward.
See, my concern about that, not only the pool. My concern is the current plans, the way I see it, this is not a long-term plan. That's my concern. Are you aware that the NCAP project is coming back under a different name? Have we considered what would be the effect of that?
If I can answer that,
Please.
I think we answered this once before. If I were a young man, which I'm not, and just getting married.
God bless you. Younger than me.
Well, and I don't think I'm younger than anybody in this room, but if I were a young man and I thought that I was going to have 8 children, and I wanted to build a house, and I don't have any at this point, or I have 1,
yes.
and I wanted to build a house that could accommodate 8 and roll the dice that I will have those children,
yep.
I could do that, as long as I'm willing to pay the money. With the State Department of Education, you can't do that. You can't get plans approved based on needs that don't show up in your demographic report,
okay.
based on things that are not concrete at the time. Yes. Now, that may be a flaw in how the system works, or it may not be, okay. but that's how it is. So we can't send plans to the state to use taxpayers' dollars for rooms that we don't have students in our projection that are going to fill those seats.
Yes.
So yes, if something comes in from out of the blue in 5 or 10 years, we are going to have a problem. But we can't. The law, the state code doesn't allow us to anticipate things like that.
Yes. But Mr. Heldy, allow me, and I really appreciate the dialogue or the question. This has been done already at Lincoln School. When they did the addition in Lincoln School at the back, they did it with thoughts in mind that that building can carry a 2nd floor. Now, if we look at it now, I understand your analogy about the money, but we pay taxes, and this is going to cost us a lot of money. Now, this has been done in Lincoln School. Again, the building...
No.
Yes.
Factually, there were going to be classrooms put on Lincoln School. When you go out to a referendum, if you get $50 million,
yes,
that's all you can spend.
Yes.
When you go out to bid, if the bids come in higher than $50 million,
you can't.
You have to cut something.
Yes.
So in the last renovation, we had to cut classrooms at Lincoln School. But we were able to have enough money to reinforce that part of the building so down the road we could add on to it.
Yes.
So it was not a projection of what we didn't know at the time. It was a cut from what we needed at the time.
So we can't build something with reinforcement that can carry a 2nd, 3rd floor in the future? See, my concern is not only the pool. I believe...
I don't know if the architect says the building and the engineering, and again, I don't want to belabor this beyond, but just as a closing comment, the engineering firm of Epic has a team of architects, has a team of engineers. They are the board's representative. They take everything that the architectural firm does, who is a professional service provider. Epic is as though he's a part-time, temporary employee of ours. He takes everything that they take, everything that the architect's done, and they review it for accuracy, for efficiency, for estimating. That's why some of the estimates changed, because Epic said, I think you're a little high on this, you're a little low on that. Okay? So to your point, they're saying that can't be done. Okay? Now, I'm not an architect. That's what 2 different firms are telling me. But if we're doing it for the future, we would have a hard time getting it approved. It still has to match our demographic needs for now. And by now, I mean the 5-year window of the demographic report.
Yes. I'm not saying build for 20 years from now. I'm saying, yes, build it for 5 years from now, but have a solid construction that can carry more. I mean, what's preventing them from building on top of the pool? The architect said he's done it here in the high school. They can build on top of the pool, and down the road, you don't have to tell the state that. If you build on top of the pool and go up a 2nd floor, down the road, you need more space. You don't have to destroy the field. We're going to spend $2.5 million on it. You can take the parking lot in the back and connect it to the new building. That's what I'm thinking. It could be things that the architect may have overlooked. But Mr. Heldy, also allow me to be frank. I speak to parents. $200,000 for a toilet. People question that. People like, my house is worth 2.5 toilets. Like some of the stuff really exaggerated.
I'm going to intercede.
Can I just comment one thing on that?
Okay.
The reason why those toilets are so expensive, and I when the website's up, I want you to take a good look at the pictures from the kindergarten center. But because all of that's a very old building that wasn't touched in the referendum, and we have to do a major asbestos abatement, which is an extreme expensive proposition. So the big part of the cost there is not for the bathrooms, it's for the asbestos abatement. On April the 12th, at the presentation, the plan is, and this will be a very difficult challenge for me, is I'm going to speak for about 15 minutes. The architect's going to speak for about 15 minutes. The engineering, EPIC's going to speak for about 15 minutes. And then we're going to have a reasonable amount of time for a Q&A that can be directed to any of and Mr. Kelly's going to speak a little bit about the tax impact. And we'll have a reasonable time for a Q&A with the participants. So if you have questions that you want to direct towards any one of those people, including the architect or the engineer, you can do it on April 12th.
Thank you.
And if I could, and just to address a point, because
Please.
So in our meetings, because I know you felt that you weren't allowed to engage directly with the architect and with the engineering company. That is not, it wasn't about architect or engineering company, and it's actually not even about Mr. Hurley. The procedure that has been used by this board for years and years, and by most boards, is you open the floor to hear public comment, because public comment's important to us to hear and factor in, and it will spur questions of us to on our committees and such to the administration. So it's important for us to hear it. But this session is not a debate session. It's not a question and answer session. What we do is when there are questions, they are directed to the president, and this last week myself, and this week myself, I'm presiding. And then if there's somebody that's here that can answer that question and time allowing and such, we make every attempt to answer questions, extemporaneously during the meeting. If we can't, frequently it will be a follow-up type of answer. But so that wasn't intended to shield anybody. When I think back, I didn't go back to the videotape yet, but I wanted to, because if I missed something, I would apologize for that.
I appreciate it.
But I remember you asked a question about the total amount of the revision. I remember I answered that simply because I had the paper in front of me. It wasn't to shield anything. So that's our format.
Just to clarify, I mean, again, this is not a personal attack.
No, not at all.
My question actually was more for the architect down the road. If I brought you here and asked you, build, where would you build if he's saying there is no viable option? Because I recall him saying for an additional $2.5 million, we could have something. That was when I felt that the question was not
again, there'll be
direct.
another opportunity on April 12th.
Thank you.
To address questions. And as Mr. Hurley has said, hopefully the information that's going to be available on the website this week is hopefully going to answer a lot of questions, take a lot of confusion out, because I know, we all listen to something and we hear something a little differently than maybe what's actually said. So this will be able to, to document some of these points as we go. And then, as Mr. Hurley also said, there'll be a very simple link you're familiar with sending the emails to the board already, I know, but there'll be a link for the public to be able to, send a question to us, and we'll make every attempt we can to answer things. We have to remember that we have an administration that's busy operating in a district of 2,700 students, and so there'll be limits to what we're able to do. But we want to do everything we can to get the public all the information that we can share. We want to do everything we can to do due diligence on this. Our responsibility is to put forth a plan that addresses the needs of the districts, the security of our students, and we want to be as transparent as we can as a board about that, because that's what you as the public deserve. So we're trying to hit all those things. It's the group sitting here, we've never done this before. Right, so it's new to us, and we think we're doing it in a deliberative, planned way.
We do appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, and I know.
Yes.
If there was an alternative option that will keep the resource we have, would you honestly consider it, or your mind is made already? Because honestly, and again, sometimes I get in trouble for being honest. What I hear from people out there, you're wasting your time. Don't go there. And again, that's what I get from people. People tell me, Mr. Hurley and the board have made their mind already. Don't go there. I've heard it from people from other towns. I've heard it from residents in the town. My question is, if there is a viable option to save that pool, would you honestly consider it?
I would, number one, I can't speak to what other board members will say. Each of us as an individual has to weigh factors and decide what it is we're going to, we're able to support as a group. There'll be some dialogue about what that is. For us, for me, so I can speak only for myself. I don't know about the other people you've been speaking to. But, I'm still trying to be very open-minded about where we are, what it is we might be presenting forth as a referendum, what components might be in that. I have to say, though, that I'm not thinking in terms of, saving or not saving the pool. I'm thinking in terms of what we need to accomplish from an educational program standpoint, what we need to accomplish from security standpoints, what we need to accomplish from this being part of it, community aspirations, for the schools, which includes a large amount of sharing of resources with the town for rec department and that sort of thing. Now, the sharing with the YMCA isn't necessarily part of that, but there's no predetermined path to do away with that. Okay. That's mine. Other members of the board would have a different answer, but we're not at that point yet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you again for allowing me to speak for so long.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Any additional comments? No? Those were, we thank the public for those comments. At 9:05, we'll close the floor for comments, and we do have need for an executive session this evening to discuss 3 student issues.
So moved.
By Mrs. Libera, seconded by Mr. Racine. All in favor?
Aye.
We expect to be gone 15 minutes? 5 minutes, no action to be taken?
No.
No action to be taken. Thank you.